scenario. So today's scenario is from 1987. All right. Okay. Thank you for the compliment. All right. Now, this one, like, so the today's scenario, it is there from 1987. So from 1987, this present position is there. Now, we have discussed about the typology of conflicts also. See, this typology of conflicts, I said, like, the demands as such, it's very different. All right. So some cases, Nagaland, different organizations, same demand. Assam, different organizations, different demand. Manipur, different organizations, some for the same demand. All right. So this is what. So that is the reason why we saw the typology of conflicts. Like, see, the example of national conflict. What is the meaning of sub-regional ethnic conflicts? Means national conflict means where the demand is for a creation of a separate country. Ethnic conflicts means there is an intertribal conflict, and in the case of sub-regional means it is kind of within the region. It may be for autonomy also. Fine. Now this is what you see. The typology, if you look into that, I said the demand. I said, see, on the basis of demand, I said on the basis of demand, it is either for it is for a separate state, or means separate state means as such Bodoland or something like that. It is for a separate country, or it is for more autonomy. All right. So this is what on the basis of demand. Whereas on the basis of, say, the people involved in the conflicts, on the basis of the people involved in the conflicts, it may be on the basis of say the tribal versus the tribal versus the outsiders. Outsiders mean mostly it's the migrants. All right. So outsiders means the migrants. All right. And the third thing is the tribal versus the government aspect for secession. All right. So these are the three things. So we are going to see that. It's okay. Open me on okay. No problem இருக்கா எப்படி ஃபுல்லாகவே ஆஃப் பண்ணிட்டு மணாலி பாருங்க மைக் இன்னும் இஷ்யூஸ் இருக்கா நீங்கள் பாருங்கள் சார் பாருங்கள் சரி பாருங்கள். So based on the demand, it is maybe for a demand for a separate country, separate state, or autonomy. But based on the people, it is the tribal versus the tribal, intertribal conflict, tribal versus outsiders against the migrants, and tribal versus the government demanding for it, secession. Fine. So these are some of the things. Fine. These are the typology. You see, mostly it is more or less like the left-wing extremism only. They involve in what is called as guerrilla warfare. What is called as what? Guerrilla warfare. Like they involve like. So what is the meaning of this guerrilla warfare? What is the meaning of this guerrilla warfare means? You see, traditionally, it's kind of, you can say that it is an asymmetric. The problem between them, it is asymmetric in nature. Asymmetric means what? Not equal. You see, one side, the country's military forces, which is large in numbers, they have the latest equipments. Whereas on the other hand, these tribal groups were very smaller groups. All right. So how can they compete with them? So they can't do that. They use the terrain. That is the reason why they call it as guerrilla attacks. They use the terrain to attack. All right. You remember, like, so in Naxals also, we remember that we spoke about Cobra Battalion, a specialized wing they excelled in guerrilla warfare. This is also, mostly here, it is also asymmetrical nature, unconventional methods of warfare used. All right. Fine. So, but the thing is that I said left-wing extremism, it is the government versus CPI Maoist. But here, lot many parties, lot of different conflicts, lot of different demands. Understand now? It's not exclusively based on development alone. Fine. So we'll see that. Like now we have to see the specific. Like we'll see the okay. This is one only, but we'll see point by point. All right. So first of all, I'm going to give you the general reasons for the conflict. Like so, before seeing the specific reasons, state specifics or our approaches. So first of all, we are going to see what are the generic reasons and then the state specific. So first of all, we'll see the generic reasons. Please write down. First is the policy of exclusion by the British. The policy of exclusion by the British. People, Chandramohan, Prashant, like, is it fine right now, the audio? All right, fine. Okay. All right, fine. Now, we'll see the reasons. What are the reasons in general altogether? Why Northeast insurgency? The first reason is policy of exclusion by the British. What is the meaning of policy of exclusion by the British means? See, British, they're so much good in what is called as divide and rule policy, right? Now, what does this divide and rule policy means? First of all, they enacted a legislation. They enacted a legislation in 1874. All right. So in 1870s, they enacted a legislation which is called as Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. Now, what is this Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation is? They enacted this in the year 1870s, 1874 or something like that. What is the meaning of Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation? Means by which they prevented the settlement of non-tribals in the tribal areas. What? They prevented the settlement of non-tribals in tribal areas. Non-tribal in tribal areas. Especially in Eastern Bengal. Eastern Bengal today is Nagaland, Assam, Arunachal. It's all part of it. Arunachal was that time part of Tibet and also, but like speaking about Assam and these regions basically. Now, why this is there? Because you see, British India, they focused more on commercial exploitation of India. They undertaken a lot of plantations, plantations, I mean, like not just, you can see tea or coffee plantations. In addition to that, timber plantations also. They planted a lot of timber, like especially teak. Because industrialization was happening, they want the raw materials from India. So for having these plantations like timber, they want the support of the tribals to clear the forest. But tribals, like only the knowledge as such, they don't kind of mean submissive to the tribals, sorry, British actually. Those things could be possible only from the people from the plains. So the British took the people from the plains to clear the forest. So tribals were there in the forest, but they are not kind of cooperative with the British. British need non-tribals to clear the forest and put plantations as a laborers. Whereas the tribal knowledge, know how it is important. So they need both the tribals as well as non-tribals. They took the non-tribals from Bihar, Jharkhand, today's Bihar and those plain areas basically. But now what happened? Now there is a tussle between the tribals versus non-tribals. So to prevent that tussle between tribals and non-tribals, they enacted this Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation in 1874. That is what today we call it as what? Inner line permit. So this is nothing but today's inner line permit system. Today this is the ILP. Today when we discuss about inner line permit, we'll see those things. So today's inner line permit system is more based on this concept called Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act. Now, I said prevented the settlement of non-tribals in tribal areas. Even today we have this inland permit wherein the movement of non-tribals is restricted in the tribal areas. We'll see that, like for each of these states, we'll see that. This is the major reason, number one. So it resulted in this policy of exclusion of British. It resulted in more alienation. It resulted in what? more alienation rather than assimilation. So people started thinking that like, no, tribals are kind of, we are separate, we are not part of the non-tribals. That this sense has appeared at the time of British India. This is point number one. Point number two, write it down: the disconnection from the mainland. The disconnection from the mainland. Now, what is the meaning of disconnection from the mainland? You see, post we have discussed about the Siliguri corridor, right? Pre-independence, people from Kolkata or West Bengal, they go to Bangladesh. Today's Bangladesh, that is part of British India then, and they can visit the northeastern states. So pre-independence, they can visit directly, is it not? If you look at the map, they can visit directly, go through Bangladesh. That is today's Bangladesh. It was part of British India, right? Unified. They can go to the northeastern states, and similarly, they can come vice versa. But what happened at the time of independence? This was disconnected. Now people have to move from Kolkata to Siliguri corridor. What is Siliguri corridor? It's, I said, a narrow corridor which exists called as Chicken's Neck, and then they have to come to northeastern states and to and fro. So the essential supplies from Kolkata has to go through that, or else the kind of market or the finished products from northeast, they have to go to Kolkata again through Siliguri corridor. So this is what it got disconnected. Only through a narrow corridor which is called the Siliguri corridor it is connected. So the disconnection of the mainland from the northeast. This is again more alienation. This is again called as what? More alienation. Point number three, vulnerability of international borders. Point number three is vulnerability of international borders. What is the meaning of vulnerability of international borders? This is for vulnerability of international boundary or international borders. You see, an approximate, say, more than or approximate 90% of the northeastern states border, they are shared with the neighboring countries. They are shared with neighboring countries. More than 90% of the northeastern states shares borders. Their borders are shared rather than with the states than in the neighbors. You can look at the map also. You see, this is what I've been mentioning right now. So this is what the disconnection. So previously they were going like this one. Right now they have to go like this. Understand? This is what the disconnection is. And look at the borders, like border thing I'm mentioning it. You see here. You see, take the case of Mizoram. Mizoram, more than it shares with Manipur, Assam and Tripura, it shares more with Bangladesh and Myanmar. Similarly, take Arunachal Pradesh. More than it shares with Assam, it shares more with Bhutan, China and Myanmar. This is what? So vulnerability of more. So the states sharing borders most with the neighboring countries. This is the problem number. Alt F8 ஒரு நிமிஷம் Alt F8 இது ஆக்சுவலி நான் இப்போ எழுதுனதெல்லாம் போயிடுமா எப்படி சொல்லுங்க சரி நான் சேவ் பண்ணிக்கிட்டுமா Alt F8 பேசாம இல்லை இதில் சேவ் பண்ண வேண்டாம். நான் இப்போ ஏற்கனவே எடுத்துனது ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. நான் இப்போ இருக்கட்டும், நான் புதுசாக நான் இதில் காப்பி பண்ணிக்கிறேன். பென் ட்ரைவில் காப்பி பண்ணால் அந்த இஷ்யூஸ் இருக்கும். So this is the one, like vulnerability of international borders. And fourth is about inter as well as inter-regional disparities. Fourth one is inter as well as inter-regional disparities. What is the meaning of inter as well as inter-regional disparities? Means, you see, there's a disparity among the states also, among the region also. So there is a lot of differences between, say, Arunachal versus Nagaland. All right. And within Nagaland also. Within Nagaland means, like, even though you say, I discussed about this greater Nagaland, right? So Naga groups, they're not just one groups. There is Konyaks, then is Thangkuls, there is Ziliang. All right. There is Angamis. So a lot of sub-tribal clans are there. A lot of such tribal sub-clans are there. So even though they're kind of part to be common, okay, big Naga group, there are so many clans or sub-clans are part of it. So that is a lot of inter as well as inter-regional disparities that led to that. All right. So these inter as well as inter-regional disparities with respect to land control, with respect to identity, with respect to language, with respect to demography. Now, what is the meaning of it? Land control, you see, like all these scheduled tribes, or say like the Nagas or the Angamis, I mean, like they have different set of principles. They have different set of rules and regulations on their own. All right. So with respect to identity also, like on the outside, like we can think it's about all Northeast people, but even within the Nagas, there are a lot of difference in identity. The language they use, the kind of you can say the way the language they speak and they write, everything is differs. And demography, Nagas are present majority in Nagaland, they are minority in Arunachal, they are minority in Manipur, they are minority in Assam also. Fine, that is what. So these are some of the differences which you have to keep in mind, which has led to another conflict. Understand? So these are the reasons in general. Now, so fourth point, like, have you this is what fourth point I said. This is the fourth point, no? The fourth point is inter as well as intra-regional disparities. Inter as well as intra-regional disparities. So one question, sir, since the tribal people wanted non-interference from the non-tribals, how the Bengal regulation gave them a sense of alienation? Yeah, and the thing is that, like, no, I don't want others to be mingled with me. If you let other people to mingle with me, that is called as assimilation. If I don't want others to be settled there, I want to be maintain that uniqueness, that is called as alienation. Alienation means that the policy led to alienation means, like, alienation means don't think like I'm alone. I am alone means I want to be alone means I want to be, I'm separate. That is the reason why I want to be alone. Understand? That is what. All right, fine. The next things, the other things, like now we are going to speak about the governance issues, like the other four issues, like which is general, like those things where it's kind of like left-wing extremism, what we have seen, no, pre-independence and post-independence. Here is also. So those four issues are, you can say, like maybe at the time of pre-independence or it is continuing. But here we are going to see the present governance issues. So how a bad governance has led to that. The first one is homogenizing. What is the meaning of homogenizing? No, treating everyone to be the same. No, I'm sorry with the colors. Actually, I forgot, like because like next time, like I may change, but the present is, but this is a picture, right? So I'll change probably next time. Then the meaning is homogenizing. What is the meaning of homogenizing? Homogenizing, you can look from the picture, like you are kind of considering everyone to be the same one. You're not respecting the cultural identity, or you can say the kind of respective uniqueness. You're not respecting the diversity kind of thing. So we look like, no, this is something you can find it, right? So for most of, say, people from north, so I'm not speaking about those people who are there in who are like learning from our academy, or those people. I'm saying about those people, common man. For the common man of North India, all people from South, they are called as Madrasi, all right. They don't differentiate between Karnataka, Kerala, or Tamil Nadu. Similarly, for all South Indians, all North Indians are kind of, you can say they're kind of like, you see, Tamil Nadu, they used to call us Seth, all right, Seth people. Seth means like, the Seth, like here it is Marwade, I mean. Similarly, for the North and the South Indian, all Northeastern people, like they are kind of Northeastern. Some people they consider they come from the kind of from China. So that is, it's, I'm saying about common people. So this is what, like, homogenizing happens not just with the people, even the government. So government always looks, today we discuss about, like, people think about, mostly speak about Assam, sometimes about Nagaland. How many of us know about geography of the Northeast? The people of the Northeast, we don't know much. So they're not kind of politically, they're not kind of, you can say they're neglected again. So this is the reason why the policy of homogenizing in the governance aspect, like, no, even though we have a ministry called donor development of Northeastern region, this is the ministry which you have to follow that, but we don't have state specific, issue specific governance. That is what my meaning is, lack of governance with respect to homogenizing, number one. So please do follow the donor ministry. Donor means development of Northeast region. So there is a dedicated ministry, but still there is a problem. All right. The second one is multiple power centers. What is the meaning of multiple power centers means? You see, there is central government, there is state government. In addition to that, Schedule 5 or Schedule 6 is applicable. All right. So you have all levels of administration. For instance, Meghalaya, take the case of Meghalaya. In Meghalaya, the entire state of Meghalaya is under Schedule 6. The entire state is under Schedule 6, more given autonomy. All right. But the problem is, people don't know where and whom to approach. Because of this multiple power centers, this is kind of exploited by the politicians. All right, people don't know where to go and give the grievances because they keep on passing the buck. Okay, we are not responsible kind of thing. So because of this presence of multiple power centers, people are unable to know whom they have to redress their grievance and who will address these grievances are. Understand? And some people who are part of the state government, MLAs, they'll be part of these in Schedule 5 areas also. All right, so this is what presence of multiple power centers. And third is about AFSPA. AFSPA stands for what? Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Armed Forces Special Powers Act. But this is a controversial law. We are not going to discuss right now in detail, but AFSPA has led to a lot of resentment. One of the most hated word in Northeast, AFSPA. Why people don't want AFSPA? We'll discuss that like under the security forces. I said it's a very sensitive issue, very sensitive topic. We'll discuss that later on. AFSPA is one thing. AFSPA is also considered to be a governance failure. The next one, lastly, the Act East policy. Act East policy is a good thing only, right? So initially we had what is called as Look East. Now from Look East we have transformed into Act East. Like some people say that's kind of a change of name only, and some people say that like it's kind of like involvement of more security. So Act East means not just looking, you've got to have a relationship between the country, India and the ASEAN communities through the development of Northeast. That is what the meaning is. More proactive engagement. All aspects, economic, diplomatic, cultural, security aspects, that is what. So development of, you can say, developing the link between India and the ASEAN countries through the development of Northeast. That is what. Now, how that can be a governance issue? How that can be a negative issue? That's a good sign, sir. But that is where I would like to differ. You see, people of Northeast, they are not for an all-round development alone. They are very much concerned about their culture as such, equally. This is one picture which shows that. You see, one side, like I'll tell you what is this one. It's one side, it is about the development, and other side, it is about interest. Interest, here it is culture. Here it is culture. Here it is environment. Here it is about security. Whereas on the other side, development, it is infrastructure and livelihood. Infrastructure and livelihood. So the tribal people, what they want in the Northeast, if we say that Northeastern people are fighting insurgency, it's happening because of lack of development, that is a wrong. Development is one of the reasons, but not the major reason. That is what differentiates from left wing and the Northeast. So more like in left wing, actually, I have said like how mining has led to immiserization, right? Misery. How mining is not ecologically unsustainable, how it is economically unviable, how it is socially devastating. Similarly, here is also people are, even the development, more infrastructure, more livelihood. You must have heard about schemes like Udan, Uday Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, regional connectivity scheme. The government is developing roads, the largest bridge which connects across Brahmaputra, and we have rail projects which is connecting the capitals and all. But why it is not so a good thing? Because you see, people, even though infrastructure it is leads to improvement of livelihood, but people are feared that okay, too much of infrastructure will hurt the tourism. Sorry, no, I mean too much of tourism will hurt the culture actions. No, they have this unique culture, right? So people fear that a mass tourism would affect their culture. So that is what they are for development, but the development should not be at the cost of their culture. The development should not be at the cost of environment, destruction of ecology, and development should not be feeling them insecure. Understand? This is what. So even though the topic is, I have placed it under development and the extremism, linkages between development and the spread of extremism, but still people, they want development but not at the cost of their culture. That is what you need to balance. You need to balance between the development and the culture. You need to develop the balance between development and the culture on other side. Understand, people? This is what. Now we'll see the state specific things, people. Now we'll see the state specific things. So what are the state specific legislations we have it? Sorry, issues. So we have seen right now the generic issues which is applicable to all the states. Why there is a problem, the profile we have seen, and what are the issues in general we have seen, including the governance issues. Right now we'll see the state specific things. We'll start with that. We'll start with the state specific legislations. We'll start with Nagaland. Please write down. We'll start with Nagaland. So we'll start with Nagaland, first of all. Now, why we are going to discuss, see, under the state specific issues, first we'll start with Nagaland. Why? Because Nagaland, it is considered to be the hotspot, or just one people. So we'll start with Nagaland. So Nagaland, we are going to deal in we are going to discuss in detail. Other states like 5 to 10 minutes, but with Nagaland like kind of little bit in detail, in depth. Why? Because Nagaland, it is considered to be the hotspot. Nagaland, it is considered to be the hotspot of Northeast insurgency. Meaning what? It is the focal point. It is there surviving since 18th, or you can say 19th century. It is there since the late part of 19th to 20th century, early 20th century. The problem of insurgency is there in Nagaland from late 19th as well as 20th century. Fine. This is what. Now we'll see one by one what are the reasons why. So I'm saying that, so we're going to take Nagaland as a case study. Rest after other things, other states, it's very specifically. So how you have to approach, study this one is, so Nagaland, first of all, like for each and every state, like we are going to first of all look into the borders first of all. A specific state borders with what are the other states and other countries geographically, and we have to speak about the applicability of ILP and also AFSPA, whether it is there or not. Fine. So the issues and that. So with respect to Nagaland, first of all, we will see what are the states bordering. What are the states bordering Nagaland? And what are the countries bordering Nagaland? The states which are bordering Nagaland include, on the northern part, it is what? Arunachal. On the western part, you have Assam. On the southern part, you have Manipur. And in the eastern part, and in the eastern part you have Myanmar. So you have one country, Myanmar, and the other three states which are bordering them. All right, fine. This is what. All right. So if you look into that right now, we'll see the kind of timeline. We'll see the kind of timeline of Northeast insurgency in Nagaland. So as far as the timeline is concerned, like we'll start with so we'll start the timeline starting from 1880s. So it was in 1880s first time Naga Hills became part of British India. Naga Hills in 1880s, it was Naga Hills became part of British India. In 1918, the next thing happens in 1918. In 1918, the Naga people form a club which is known as Naga Club. They form what? Naga Club. What is Naga Club? Basically to protect the interest of. It is basically to protect the interest of Nagas. Already they are part of ILP regime. Already they're part of this Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. So what happens? So in that time, like British divided Bengal, right, on the basis of religion. So and that time they sensed an opportunity. So Nagas, they formed a kind of an club which is called as Naga Club. Now next thing is in the year say 1929. In the year 1929, when Simon Commission came to India, the Naga people, they demanded, they said they are not part of, they are not, they were there, they wanted them to be considered not part of India. All right. So they wanted a kind of a special status. All right. They don't want to be part of India. Why? Because you see in the Simon Commission, like the Congress, they expected a dominion status, right? So they say like if dominion status, if you give dominion status, all right, so do not include in Indian Union. So if at all you give a dominion status to Indian Union, we don't want to be part of it, we want to be independent. So the seeds of separatism started there officially, formally. As a result, you see in the year 1935, you see the significance of year 1935 with respect to Indian history is the Government of India Act. So in the Government of India Act 1935, what it did, so they were given, the Naga Hills were given an excluded area status, a special region, a backward region status. Now what is the meaning of excluded area means? So any law which applies to the entire India, it won't be applicable to Naga area. Unless and until Naga people accept it, it won't be. That is the reason why it is called as excluded area. So if any legislation from the government, British India, it is applicable to entire country, it won't be applicable to these areas. That is what the meaning is, underlying meaning is. So they were given some special or backward area status kind of a thing. It is called as a backward tract also. And the next major event happens in the year 1946, people. What is happening in 1946 is, by 1946, it becomes the Naga Club. The Naga Club becomes Naga National Council. Now, what is the significance of this renaming? What is the significance of this renaming is national? So, meaning what? They were kind of, promoting a separate country. So this is the time, like I said, 1946, they know that like India is going to be divided into India and Pakistan based on religion. Now that is the reason why they changed the name to club to a national, meaning they want to fast track that separatism. No, they were placing the demands that okay, they went to Mountbatten and everything. They said like no, make us independent. We don't want to be part of India or Pakistan. Now, as a result of which only what talks happened between a lot of leaders, Naga national leaders, between Gandhi, Nehru, and all these people. But what happened? Initially, there was a kind of agreement. Initially, there was an agreement in 1947 June. In 1947 June, there was an agreement which is called as 9-point agreement. No need to by heart it. These are for reference only, just an understanding case study. In this 19-point agreement, what they did, like it was between the Naga National Council leaders, few of the leaders from Nagaland, as well as few of the leaders, I mean, from this Assam and the Nagaland leaders. What they said that, fine, you be part of it. The Naga people, let you be part of it for India. You be part of it with India for 10 years. We'll provide you more autonomy. If you are not happy, you can revise. So, what we expected, like we expected them to coexist. Let Nagaland be with India for 10 years. If you're not happy, you can change after 10 years. We'll give you more autonomy. So some people were happy, some people were unhappy. Two factions. After this one, it resulted in two factions. What are these two factions? One faction resulted in moderates and one fact that is extremist. Who are these moderates and extremists? Moderates of Nagas who are happy with part of India having autonomy. They're happy with what? Autonomy. But they want a separate nation. These people, they wanted a separate nation at any cost. These are the differences between moderates and extremists. The extremists, they were led by a person called Fizo. So from now on, you see, every time where there is a talks, there will be one party which accepted the talks, the other party which opposed that, which becomes a breakaway faction. Now, this is what happens. The moderate and extremist, they are happy with the autonomy within India, but they want a separate nation only. So soon after what happened, this person Piso, in the year 1947, just one day before India's independence in August 14, 1947, he declared independence. He declared unilateral independence for Nagas. On behalf of Nagas, he declared a unilateral independence. He declared a unilateral independence. Okay, so we are not part of it, like we are now independent kind of thing. So after which, like again, Nehru goes and talks, all right. So, but nothing kind of working out. So by 1947, after 1947, 1952, the next major thing is 1952. In 1952, what happens? In 1952, they boycott the Naga National Council. They boycott the general elections. India's first general elections, they boycott that. Parallelly, they conduct a referendum. They conduct a people voting, in which they said that 99% of the people, they want a separate nation. They want to secede, or they want to separate from India. They did that. It's not official people. It was done by the Naga National Council. They boycotted and they did that. Simultaneously, they started establishing a parallel government. So, you see, from 1954 or say 54 to 56, a lot of developments happened. 1954 to 1956, a lot of developments happens. They started forming a federal government comprised of other groups. What does the meaning of federal government means? A central government comprising of other smaller groups of tribals. And they started Naga home guards also, meaning they developed all military. By 1956, they are going out a kind of a military attack, guerrilla warfare. No more talks. Nobody can know. Anyone come for talks, we are not going to listen. Let the moderates be. They even killed the moderate leaders also. They even killed they killed the moderate leaders also. So what happened after that? So because of this federal government as well as this home guards, they formed this kind of conglomeration of these tribal groups, as well as they formed their own army. Now the major thing happened as in the year 1958. What is the significance of the year 1958? So India started, for the first time, India started counter military operations. So till that time, like, we did not carry out any such counter military operations. It was in the year 1956 we started this counter military operations in the form of AFSPA. So the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was enacted in India post independence. It was there in pre-independence also. We'll see that it was enacted the post independence era so as to counter Naga insurgency. AFSPA was implemented in Assam area so as to counter which one? Naga insurgency. So this was the first time we went for the counter military operations. But counter military operations are also kind of failure. And that is the reason why what we did after this failure in the year 1962. In the year 1962, by the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act, we have inserted Article 371A. Inserted Article 371A, a special and temporary provision for Nagaland. What is so special and temporary in that? What is so special in that? It means that, as per this one, a law, any act of parliament or the state legislature, if it is affecting the religious and social practices, if it is affecting the religious and social practices of Nagas, any law, maybe parliament or the state legislature, which is affecting the religious and social practices of Nagas, the customary laws and procedures of Nagas, civil and criminal administration of justice of Nagas, and which is related to the ownership and transfer of land and resources, land and its resources of Nagas. So any act of parliament which is affecting these things, it won't be applicable unless it is accepted or ratified or given consent by the Naga Legislative Assembly. So only after the consent or approval by the Naga Assembly. So Naga Assembly means today it is Naga Assembly. Before that it was you have to get the permission of the governor and other things. So today it is about Naga Assembly because Naga Assembly is like it came 1 year later on only. But before that you have to get the permission from the governor and those regional people actually. Fine. Organizations. Fine. This is what. So any law. So underlying meaning is we'll give you complete self-determination. We'll give you complete autonomy. You be part of it. You exist geographically with us. More like Kashmir only. But people are not happy. Again, still the problem continued on. So finally, the government of India gave up. Okay, no means of constitutional provisions. It's not going to help out. So finally, in the year 1963. So finally, in the year 1963, what happened? Nagaland was given statehood. Statehood for Nagaland. Directly, you see, it was carved out. I said, like, apart from the linguistic separation, or you can say linguistic reorganization of states, this was a state in the first state in the northeast to be formed, carved as a separate one, directly, not as an union territory to elevation to status, directly a state it was given. So when the military measure failed, when the constitutional measures fail, now it comes as statehood measures. Now we don't stop with that. Like, no, even though after 63 again, there are a group of people who are accepted it, other people. But the major event happens. You see, after this, a series of event happens in 1975. In 1975, after Sikkim became part of it again, there was renegotiation. In 1975, there was Shillong Accord. So again, what Shillong Accord? There are other people which was part of this Naga National Council. They were ready to give up the arms. They were ready to give up the arms. They gave up Indian secession. But what happened? This is where the turning point it started. The today's organization called NSCN, it came into picture. So after this series of failures, like now, just keep in mind, I said no, it's kind of like one after agreement or other, like there is always one set of people who accepted, always one set of people who disagree with that. Always the people who disagree with that, like later on, they be extremists. So by 1980, what happens? So people who are part of NNC splits into various factions. It becomes one specific thing which is called as NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland. Today we have a lot of factions. So this NSCN came into picture in 1980s. It broke from NNC, Naga National Council. You see these factions, why they keep on breaking? I said it's more kind of political ambitions only. It's more about political ambitions rather than the interests of the people. By 1988, what happens? By 1988, this NSCN, it splits into NSCN IM. What does IM stands for? Isaac Mua. Isaac Mua. And NSCN K faction. K faction is Kaplang. It's called as what? K faction. Kaplang. NSCN IM and NSCN Kaplang. So even though both the people wanted a greater Nagaland, compared to these two people, these are pro-talks. These are pro-talks, these are anti-talks. They don't believe in talks. These are pro-talks and these are anti-talks faction. You see, that is what year after year, whenever there is an arrangement between the government of India and the groups, there is always one people who disagree with that. They become a separate group. They form a new group. All right. So this is what happens. You see in India also a lot of political parties, they kind of create new groups and all. All right. Especially like parties like Congress, you have a lot of breakaway factions. Like when Indira Gandhi was prime minister, there were a lot of Congress parties, like different Congress parties, a lot many parties, and especially people from Kerala, you know that like how many Congress party you have in factions you have in Kerala. All right, this is what. Now, the addition next things is like right now, like there was a similar agreement in 1997 also. All right. So in 1997 also there was an agreement, and as well as in 2015 they signed a Naga framework agreement. Things were fine till last year. So Naga framework agreement, it was signed in 2015. The framework agreement, the significance of this agreement is that this agreement is between NSCN. This agreement is between NSCN IM faction plus the government of India, the person who is interlocutor. So who is the interlocutor? Interlocutor means person who mediated the talks. The interlocutor person is the present governor N. Ravi. So the Nagaland, the governor, he initiated the talks. All right. He initiated the talks, and then he was kind of instrumental in bringing peace in that region. The significance of this Naga framework agreement is the details the details is not out in public, not given in public. So it was a kind of a secret arrangement between that, like the details of which is not shared actually. So it was kind of peaceful, like so last 5 years it was kind of peaceful only, but right now the problem again started. Why NSCN K is not part of it? Because you see, NSCN K is responsible for the Chandel attack. You remember Chandel attack in Manipur, hot pursuit surgical strike. So after which NSCN K was banned. NSCN K is banned under an Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It is there. Fine. So this is what the meaning is. So NSCN IM is the predominant faction or the group of Nagas. Understand? This is what. So today it is a lot of other problems, because today what is so last week one good news also was there, because it was in the last 60 years after the formation of statehood, national anthem was played in the governor's speech. It was the first time in 60 years national anthem was played in Naga assembly. And even before that, I said that's what you see. Till even though they're kind of like they kind of put down the arms, but still the demand for a separate, even today they are demanding for a separate flag, they are demanding for a separate constitution. So more or less like the kind of arrangement they have in Kashmir, they had, I mean, at least they want a separate state. Actually, what is the state? I said the state comprises of say Assam, some parts of Assam. They want to separate some parts of Arunachal and some parts of Manipur also. Understand? They basically want at least a state which is called as Greater Nagaland. Initially they were demanding for a separate country. Now they're kind of happy with a separate state which is Greater Nagaland, comprised of these Assam, Arunachal and Manipur. Understand? This is what. And the other two current affairs which you have to know with respect to Nagaland is, you have to know about this concept called RIIN. What is the meaning of RIIN? Write down. Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland. Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland. Why this is a controversial issue? Because it is again related to more or less like kind of illegal migration concept in Bangladesh. There is a cutoff date for illegal migrants in Bangladesh, right? March 1971. So similarly, register of indigenous. You see a lot of people, Naga people have been settled outside in other states. So they wanted to find out who are the real Nagas. So there are Naga people who came after 1963 also. So this register of indigenous inhabitants, it is a kind of proposal by the government, but it is being opposed by whom? The Naga groups. Why it is being opposed by the Naga groups? Because they think that it is kind of again dividing the very objective. It is kind of making a division among the parties also. So please do follow this RIIN issue as a part of current affairs. You can get a lot of things. All right. And other issues, like apart from that, like there is no much issue about Nagaland. But now coming to these two aspects, what about AFSPA? Whether AFSPA is applicable in Nagaland? Yes, it is applicable in Nagaland. Recently only it was extended for another 6 months. So it used to be revived for every 6 months. It used to be revived for every 6 months. This is what. So please do follow that. All right. And what about ILP, Inner Line Permit? So whether Inner Line Permit is applicable in the state of Nagaland? Yes. Except Dimapur. If you want to visit to Dimapur, it is not required. But except for Dimapur, it is there. So you have this validity ranging from 40 days, 45 days, 90 days. It depends on it. So if at all you and me, any non-Naga people or people who are non-resident of Nagaland, if we want to visit Nagaland, we have to get the permit. to visit that. Understand? This is what ILP, inline permit system. So we'll discuss that later on, like what exactly is ILP and all. And the next state, like, have you understood right now what is the case of Naga insurgency? This is what Naga insurgency is, a case study. You have to know that, like, how a movement which started in 1880s, 19th, early 20th century, then it's kind of persisting because of these breakaway factions. Now, today, like, there are a lot of groups like who wanted them to be part of talks. So there is right now a breakaway faction from NSC and K also. They want to be part of talks also. Fine. So please follow the news also. And the next state we are going to see is now the other states. Like, we'll start with Arunachal Pradesh. We'll start with Arunachal Pradesh. So Arunachal Pradesh, what are the states which are bordering? Arunachal, the states and the countries which are bordering them. See, on the northern side, the states include like Arunachal, it is Nagaland, and it is Assam. All right. On this part, here it is Bhutan, here it is China, here it is Myanmar. Is it fine, or have I left anything? All right. So this is what. Now, why we need to remember the names? I said, like, map is very important. Like, UPC used to ask the map, like, especially from Northeast every year in prelims. All right. So it will be very useful because you can't study geography alone. You can't by heart it. But that is the reason you study geography along with other subjects like internal security, international relations also. Now, you see, any place which is bordering with Nagaland, what will happen? There will be a spillover effect. Right now, we'll see the problems. So since Arunachal Pradesh is bordering with Nagaland, there is a spillover effect. So what are the problems there? The problems are in issue of insurgency. There is no such external thing, insurgency demand. There is no such demand for a separate country or something like that. The first problem is the spillover effect of Naga insurgency. First is what? The spillover effect of Naga insurgency. In those areas, adjoining Nagaland, those people, what they are kind of demanding? Greater Nagaland, right? They want to carve this part of Arunachal to include in this part of Arunachal, and they want to include that in Arunachal. Number two, the issue of PRC. PRC means what? The permanent resident certificate issue. So there was a proposal in the government of Arunachal that 6 tribal groups or 6 groups in Arunachal Pradesh, they were ought to be given permanent resident certificate status. So what is the significance of PRC is, if PRC is given, they would be given reservations in jobs and education. So you see, reservations, they are kind of given preference to the local inhabitants. So the local indigenous people, they are not ready to take that. They think that if at all 6 indigenous groups, 6 groups, they are from Assam. So these indigenous groups from Assam, they settled in Arunachal Pradesh long back. When they were given this permanent residence certificate, they can avail the reservation purposes, but this is kind of denied by whom? The indigenous inhabitants of Arunachal. They are not ready to share their power. Understand the benefits of reservation. This is one such issue which is there, which cropped up last year. In addition to that, like, we don't have any other issues, like, but some of the demands, there is no demand for a separate country, there is no demand for a separate state, but there is so much a kind of demand for more autonomous. Some of the tribal groups, they demand for more autonomy. Some of the tribal groups, they demand for more autonomy. Like, 2 examples I'll give you. One is the demand for Mon autonomous region, and one is demand for the Patkai autonomous region. So Patkai Hills, you remember? Patkai Hills. All right. Fine. So this is on the western part. This is on the eastern part of Arunachal Pradesh. So they're demanding more autonomous within that state, like sixth. So they're demanding, like, is Arunachal Pradesh part of sixth schedule? No. So they kind of, what is the demand? The demand is they wanted under sixth schedule. They wanted to be included under sixth schedule. All right. So that will be kind of giving in more autonomous region. So the demand for autonomous region, Patkai Bhim region, they basically want more autonomous powers, like what is happening in Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. All right. Fine. So what they equally say that, like, you see, already there is a special provision. Already there is a special provision for Arunachal in the constitution. There is a special provision for Arunachal in the constitution, that is Article 371H. But they are not happy with that. They are not happy with that. What they want is, they either want similar powers that of 371A in the case of Nagas, or 371G as in the case of Mizoram. So even though the northeastern states, they have equal powers with respect to, say, the other things, but these schedules make it very different. All right, so there are special provisions for Mizoram, there is special provision for Arunachal, there is special provision for Nagaland, but these two have more autonomy compared to 371H. So basically meaning what? The people of Arunachal, they want more powers equal in that of 371A, 371G, or simply they want themselves to be elevated to Schedule 6 status. Understand? This is what. Either they want Schedule 6 status, or they want equal powers like that of 371A and 371G, like in the case of Nagaland and Mizoram. This is what. And whenever we study about Nagaland, it is incomplete without mentioning the Chakma refugees. Who are the Chakma refugees? Chakma refugees are Tibetan minorities from Bangladesh. Chakma refugees are Buddhist minorities in Bangladesh. Buddhist minorities in Bangladesh. From they are Buddhist minorities of Bangladesh. So they were made to settle in Arunachal Pradesh. It happened before 20-30 years back. In 1980s it was, 70s and 80s. But when they were given some rights, there was a discontent, there was a kind of resentment. But right now, this problem is subsided. Right now, it is not there. Because like sometimes people used to ask questions from Chakmas. Chakmas they are from Bangladesh. They settle in the northeast, especially in Arunachal Pradesh. So when they were given the political rights, so no one is willing to share their political rights, a right to vote, a right to choose their representative. These are the problems in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, this is about Arunachal Pradesh. Next, we will see the other states. The other states, we'll start with Arunachal Pradesh. Next, we'll see which one. Next, we'll see that. Okay, we'll see Assam. Like, we'll go in order. What is happening in Assam? So first of all, Assam, like, what are the states and what are the states and what are the you can say countries? Okay, Assam, Arunachal. Assam shares border with Nagaland. Assam stands border with Manipur, border with Mizoram, border with Tripura, border with West Bengal, and borders with Bhutan, borders with, does Assam shares borders with China, Bangladesh, All right. So this is what. So as far as Assam, it shares borders with all the other sister states and also with the other two things. All right. Fine. This is what. So doubts I'll clear later on people. Like so I'll complete that and I'll clear the doubts. Maybe. Fine. This is what like so it shares borders with all these sister states, other sister states, not with respect to Sikkim, but other things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Fine. Anything which I left out? Like, okay, I forgot about Meghalaya. Sorry, people. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, 7. This is not part of it. Tripura is there, and I forgot about Meghalaya. I'm sorry. All right, this is what. Thanks for reminding. I'm forgot. I'm sorry. Fine, fine. All right, fine. So this is what. And logically speaking, right now we don't want to deal directly. Like logically speaking, if anything has like you can know the problem, right? So the problem is if anyone borders with Nagaland, there is a spillover of Naga insurgency. That is one thing. So the problems as such. So first of all, the spillover of Naga insurgency as usual, like because those bordering areas. But the most important thing is the most important problem is the problem of illegal migration. If it is if they are bordering with Bangladesh, you'll get to know that like they have. If they are bordering with Bangladesh, definitely they have a problem with illegal migrations, right? So this is what illegal migration, trans-border illegal migration is the biggest thing. Trans-border illegal migration is the biggest thing. And now we have to find out what are the groups they're demanding for. What are these insurgent groups? What they demand for? What are the demands of the insurgent groups? The demand for insurgent groups, it's of three nature. Number one, there are demand for a separate country. There are demands for separate country. Example, ULFA. Example, ULFA. ULFA stands for United Liberation Front of Assam. They want a separate country. They want a sovereign socialist Assam. They want a separate country for Assamese people. Number one. And that is the reason why, you know, ULFA is banned under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAP Act. And there is a demand for separate state also. The example for demand for separate state, it includes the Bodo people. Don't say Bodo people, the organization NDFB, National Democratic Front of Bodoland. National Democratic Front of Bodoland, they want a separate state which is called as Bodoland. So at present it is under the 6th schedule. You have something called as Bodo Territorial Council. You have something called as Bodo Territorial Council, which is formed in 2003. So you have Bodo Territorial Council formed in 2013, or I'm saying Bodo Territorial Council is there since 2003. All right, so this is fine, but still they're demanding for, there is autonomy, but still they're demanding for a separate state. This is one. NDFP. Again, NDFP is also banned. NDFP is also banned in India under the UAP Act. Okay, next one. The third set of demand is the demand for more autonomy. The demand for more autonomy. In the case of demand for more autonomy, the best example I can give you is, all right, so the Karbi people, the Karbi Anglong, all right, the Karbi Anglong, all right, and the Masas, like, so these people are demanding already, these are some part of 6th schedule, so they demand greater autonomy also. And one thing I would like to say about Kamtapur, so there is a demand for a separate state for, like in point number 2, I forgot this Kamtapur Liberation Organization. So what is Kamtapur? Even Kamtapur, I say like it's a demand for a separate, it is a demand for a separate state. The states comprise of 4 districts from Assam and 6 districts of West Bengal. The Kamtapur, the demand is, there is an organization, this organization name is Kamtapur Liberation Organization. So they demand a separate state carving out the districts of West Bengal as well as Assam, which is also again problematic. Lot of groups, I said, no, lot of groups, Kamtapur. So these are some of the things which you have to know, which is there in the issue. Fine. So these are the demands in the northeast. யாரா இருக்காங்களா? காஃபி இருக்குமா? இல்லையா? சரி விட்டுறேன். Now this is with respect to Kamtapur Liberation Organization. All right. So next we'll speak about Manipur. We'll have a break for 5 minutes and we'll resume. All right, we'll have a break and we'll resume after this. Okay, welcome back, people. So we'll see the other things. We'll continue with the other things right now. So the next one, like with respect to ILP and with respect to uh, AFSPA. So whether AFSPA is applicable and what about ILP? AFSPA in the state of Assam, it is applicable. Yes. All right. So it is kind of applicable there. But whereas in the case of ILP, there is no concept of ILP. There is no concept of ILP in the case of Assam. All right. There is no concept of ILP in the case of Assam. This is one thing. And in addition to that, like we'll see the other things also. Next we'll discuss the state of Assam, like we have done, right? We'll discuss the state of Manipur now. The state of Manipur. So Manipur, what are the states? It is on one side it is Mizoram, it is Nagaland. On the other side it is Assam, and the one country which is sharing borders, it is Myanmar. Is it not? Fine. Pull it. You see, there is a different set of problem in Manipur as such. Manipur, the problem is there is a lot of tribal versus tribal thing actually, and tribal versus government thing also. The first thing you have to know, first of all, like the problem between the Meiteis versus the government of India as well as the Manipur state government. Since the time of merger with Indian Union, there is a problem because there are groups which wanted a separate Manipur country. The groups wanted a separate Manipur country. All right. AFSPA and ILP is applicable in Arunachal Pradesh. I forgot, people. So haven't I written that? Like Arunachal Pradesh. This minute, I'll come to this one. Okay, Arunachal Pradesh. Like, please write it down. I forgot this one. Thanks for reminding. AFSPA is applicable in Arunachal Pradesh, where in the Naga adjoining police stations. You have it. Some those jurisdictions, and with respect to ILP, yes, it is there. I forgot that. Sorry. Thanks for reminding, Karthik. All right. So we'll come back to. So AFSPA is applicable in those areas where there is Naga spillover effect, Naga adjoining areas. And similarly, ILP is there, inland permit. So you have to get the ILP to us to visit Naga, this Assam, Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, next one. So this what, like there is a problem between the Meiteis versus government. They are demanding, some organizations are demanding for a separate country for the Meitei people. They want a separate country for Manipur. All right. The next is the problem between Meiteis versus the other tribal groups. Meiteis versus the other tribal groups. The other tribal groups here, they include what? The Nagas, the Kuki, the Mars group, the Zomi, Homi tribes, whatever it is, like let it be. All right. Now, why there is a problem between the Meiteis on the other tribals on the other hand? The reasons are that if you look into the geography and the demography, You see, now this Manipur, it has Imphal Valley versus the hill regions. Imphal Valley, it is just geographically, it is just 10%. It is just 10% of the area. The hills are, you can see, the rest 90%. But look at the population. So the population is this 10% of population, that is, it is comprised of Meiteis, and Meiteis are 40%. So in terms of population, the Meiteis, they are majority, which they are also not 40%, 60%. I mean, I'm sorry, they are 60%. Whereas this 90%, they are the other tribals, like it is the Cookies, the Mizos, the Nagas. All right, these groups, they form 40% of the total population. They form 40% of the total population. So the meaning is a lesser geographical area, majority population. Majority geographical area, a minority population. Understand? Lesser geographical area, majority population. Major area, minority population. So even though I mentioned about that, don't think that like, okay, these people are fighting all together. No, they are also fighting against the Nagas versus the other people also. Don't think that they are forming one group and they're fighting against Meiteis. No, the reasons for the fighting versus the Meiteis versus the non-tribals is majorly because of there is a lot of differences between the Meiteis versus other tribal groups in terms of the religious identity, in terms of cultural identity, and because of with respect to reservations. So why the problem between the Meiteis versus the other tribal groups is that basically there is a lot of cultural differences, religious differences between the Meiteis versus the non-other tribal groups. You see, predominantly the Nagas and the Mizo people, they have embraced Christianity. They have embraced Christianity. But in the case of Meiteis, they are majorly Hindus. Not the entire, like they have Christianity also, and they have like other groups also. All right. So this is what. So this is the religious as well as the cultural differences. Number one, the cause of problem, and secondly, I said about reservations. I said like when these tribal people were given reservations in education and employment, this is not liked by Meitei people, indigenous people. Fine, indigenous people, they said like, no, we want like this thing to be part of it, and these are some of the issues of discontent or resentment. All right, these are the issues of that group is HMARS. HMARS, that group. Fine, next one. And the next one is like, what about the applicability of AFSPA? What about the applicability of AFSPA here? In the case of Manipur, AFSPA, it is applicable, yes, but exception of Imphal area, except Imphal area, municipal area. And with respect to ILP, inline permit, yes, presently, it was only last year, ILP was made applicable in the state of Manipur. All right. Next is the case of Meghalaya. So this is what, like with respect to Manipur. Next we'll see into Meghalaya. What happened with respect to Meghalaya? See, Meghalaya, the case of Meghalaya is you have what are the states and districts? Meghalaya is bordering with Assam on the northern part, and on the southeastern part or the southern part, it has Bangladesh. But there is no such problem of illegal migration as such. So more than the migration, the problem of infiltration, like, so people used to be like, they used to use, like, people used to carry out on tourist activity, they used to use Bangladesh as a safe haven. All right, insurgent groups, they get the support in Bangladesh like as a safe haven. That is what. But apart from that, that there is no such insurgent movements. But if you see that, like the demand actually, what sort of people they're fighting for. In the case of Meghalaya, I said the entire state of Meghalaya, it has three major groups, right? Meghalaya has three major groups. What are those groups? These groups are Kasi, Jaintia. Start with Garo. I'm sorry. Start with Garo. GKJ on the order because that will be convenient for you to remember. The Garo, Kasi, and Jaintia Hills. Now, these people, they kind of like initially they fought together to form Meghalaya. Initially, they were part of Assam, right? These people, Garo people, Kasi people, Jaintia people, they were forming a separate group. All right. So, called as Hinni Trip or Achik Liberation Council. They formed these groups so as to carve a separate Meghalaya from Assam. But once they created separate Meghalaya, now they're fighting amongst each other. For instance, Garo people, they wanted a separate state called as, so there is an organization called Garo Liberation Army. This Garo Liberation Army, they demand for a separate state of Garo people, separate state for Garo people. Similarly for Kasis also, similarly for Jinchias also. Fine, this is what. So you see, I said the entire state is under Schedule 6. The entire state, complete autonomy. Complete autonomy is provided. But still, despite giving complete autonomy, people are demanding for separate state. Understand? This is what. This is what with respect to Meghalaya. All right. Groups demanding for separate state and some people for autonomy. This is one thing. Okay, next one. Next, we'll see the case of Mizoram. Next is Mizoram. So, what are the states which are bordering Mizoram? And what are the states? Here it is. North of Mizoram is Manipur. And what about states? This is here it is Tripura. And the countries, what are the countries? The countries in Mizoram, like, okay, I forgot Assam, no? Okay, Assam also I forgot. In the west, you have Assam. And you have Bangladesh on this part. This part is Bangladesh. And Mizoram, does it share borders with Myanmar? Is it not? Mizoram shares borders with Myanmar also, right? Is it fine? So this is what, these are some of the things. All right. Oh, again, I forgot AFSPA and ILP. Did I say or not? AFSPA, okay. I'll come back to this one. Like, okay, AFSPA and ILP, okay. As far as Meghalaya, AFSPA was revoked recently only. 2015 it was revoked. I'll change this back. As far as AFSPA is concerned, AFSPA, it is revoked. It is revoked 2015. And ILP, no ILP for Meghalaya. No ILP for Meghalaya. All right. Fine. It is revoked in 2015. And the next one is in the case of Mizoram. These are the states, and definitely, like to a little extent, there is a problem of illegal migration, but not much. All right, but you see, comparatively to all the states, Mizoram is one of the most stable state today. Mizoram, it is one of the most stable states today, even though there are little lesser problems. If you know what to know, the problems as such, the problem of the Riang, the problem of the return of the Riang tribes or from Tripura. See, the Riang people or the Bru refugees. Technically, they should not be called as refugees because it's within the country, but sometimes they used to be termed as Bru refugees. Bru people or their young people, they're kind of originally from Mizoram. They kind of, because of the internal conflict, they moved from Mizoram to Tripura. Right now, the issue of repatriation, bringing back, what is the meaning of repatriation? Means bringing them back from repatriation of Bru refugees from Tripura to Mizoram. It is being kind of considered. So this is one of the issue. But apart from that, it is one of the most stable state today. It is one of the most stable state today. Understand? Fine. So no such major problems. Like there is no such major problems of insurgency in the Mizoram as such. Fine. Next one. Okay. What about ILP and other things? What about AFSPA? AFSPA is, there is a kind of confusion. Like AFSPA is not kind of applicable, but it's still there actually. AFSPA, it is kind of still applicable in the state of Mizoram, even though despite being a kind of neutral state. Fine. So there is a sense of cloud of confusion is there with respect to AFSPA. And next is with respect to ILP. ILP is there. Yes, it is there in Mizoram. Despite being a kind of stable state, there is no such insurgency, but these two things are there. That is what the kind of interesting factor is. All right, this is what. And the next is the state of Tripura, the last state of Tripura. So Tripura, what are the states? And Tripura is bordering with Mizoram. It is bordering with Assam. And Tripura shares a border with Bangladesh. Right, so that's what I guess, no? So anything else which is left out? Mizoram and Assam, on the eastern part Mizoram, the western part Assam, northern part, like the south and southwestern part, it's Bangladesh. And the major problem is illegal migration. All right, since it's with Bangladesh, the major problems are that it shares, the major problems are, first of all, insurgency. It is caused, that is a kind of how illegal migration is an issue in migrant issue in that. So here is also illegal migration. All right, and there are few groups which are active in that. That is active in the case of Tripura. But having said so, Tripura is again one of the most stable state today. Tripura is also one of the most stable state today, equal that of Mizoram. No such major issues. No such major issues of insurgency. And with respect to the states, with respect to AFSPA, as per it was revoked in 2017. With respect to inner line permit, no inner line permit there. All right, fine. So illegal migration was there are few groups. I said there are few groups, but that is not creating a major troubles in Tripura. Fine. The next one, in the case of Sikkim. So what does the case of Sikkim? So Sikkim, like, it's more about geography only. Apart from that, like, it's not problematic. It's one of the most peaceful state. It's one of the most peaceful state, that is Sikkim, and geographically speaking, it shares borders with Sikkim with shares borders with West Bengal, only one state. And what about the countries? The countries here on the western side, you have Nepal, you have China here, you have Bhutan here. So these are the things. And rest apart, like, no problems with respect to Sikkim people. Like Sikkim, like it's almost like people are very happy. All right. I said Mizo National Front, I'll tell you, but Mizo National Front also, it's not a kind of problematic. I'll discuss that later on. All right. So Sikkim, it is these things, Nepal, China, and Bhutan. So it's not a problematic thing. So it has acceded to India in 1975. We asked with that, like, it's not a major problem. Fine. Now we'll see the solutions. We'll see the solutions. Like if there is any current affairs which is left out, like we'll discuss separately. I said no, those current affairs which is part of, which will be related to prelims. We'll have a separate things which will be common for all the things. Will be uploaded a video regarding that one. Fine. This is what about northeastern states specifically. Fine. Next, we'll see the solutions. What are the solutions for measures, or the measures or the solutions for it? Solutions for insurgency in the northeast. Again, we'll discuss about all the measures. Out of the measures which are discussed, like we'll have a comparison. So negotiations. We'll speak about security aspects. Just for a comparison, I'm writing it in an order. But I'm not going to repeat whatever there in part of left-wing extremism. We'll have a comparison and contrast. Legal measures, constitutional measures again. The same thing, like we spoke about developmental measures, governance, political solutions, and the role of, again, civil society. All right. We'll discuss these things. All right. So the comparison, but right now, like for the sake of convenience, I'll discuss negotiations and political solutions first. So I'm going to combine with the political solutions as well as negotiations. Why? In the sense, because these two examples I can give it to you. Negotiations are kind of successful. The example I can give it to you. The Mizo Accord, Assam Accord. You can give an example of Naga Framework Agreement, the Shillong Accord previously. You see, negotiations is on the cards. Like negotiations have been successful in the case of Northeast insurgency. Today, when I say about Mizo Accord, like Mizoram, it is one of the most stable state today, thanks to the Mizo Accord, which was signed in the year 1986. All right. So when I discuss about like Mizo Accord, like I mentioned about the political solutions, right? I mentioned about this person called Lal Denga. If you remember, did I say about this person Lal Denga? Did I not? Lal Denga was the person who was spearheading a movement called Mizo National Front. He was spearheading a movement called Mizo National Front. So he led that movement so as to separate Mizoram from India, secession. But you see, ultimately, when the statehood was made in 1987, so he was made chief minister, he gave up all those things. This is one of the best example. Like what we have Sitaka in the case of ex-insurgents becoming MLAs and ministers. Similarly, Lal Denga became chief minister. He was appointed, and then it is one of the most stable state today. Similarly, in the case of Assam, it's Prafula Kumar Mahanta, the ex-student leader of Assam. He was part of this agitation against the illegal migrants. So he became a leader. He became chief minister, deputy chief minister and all. This is what. So negotiations is always on the cards. There is always a group of people who are accepting talks. NSC and IM versus NSC and K. Ulfa talks faction, Ulfa anti-talks faction also there. So this is what negotiations is possible, and also the political solutions or the political things are possible in the case of Northeast. So unlike the case of left-wing extremism, it is possible. All right. So I'll answer your doubts, people, later on. Please do remind me at the end of the classes. All right. So now this is what. So political solutions are possible and negotiations are possible. Unlike in the case of left-wing extremism, where they never believe in talks, here it is possible. Now, next, speaking about the security aspects. the same security aspects, like I'm saying that like use of force is not advisable in the case of Northeast. I said use of force. So at least in Naxals, you can like you can kind of find like there is one specific party called as CPI Maoist. There is one specific army called as you see it's called as the People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. But in the case of Northeast, it's even more difficult. It's even more difficult to differentiate like what is happening in the left wing extremism. Differentiating Adivasi from Naxal is very difficult, right? So similarly here is also differentiating a tribal from an insurgent is very difficult. Understand? So that is the reason why. So here we have to focus on specific things like so use of force, it's very much careful only. Occasionally only we have used force. For instance, the 2015 Chandel attack, hot pursuit, surgical strike on NSC and K faction. So example of use of forces, those cases, like remember Operation Steeplechase in the case of left-wing extremism. So here is of use of force. Example, the 2015 surgical strike on NSC and K faction. NSC and K faction. This is one thing. But here I'm going to speak about different types of security. Different sense of security means I'm going to speak about the security, like protecting the interests of the tribals from the non-tribals. All right. So more than strengthening security, which you can add it, but here I'm going to focus on like security aspect, like along with AFSPA, like I'm going to discuss about ILP. So what is this concept of permit system? So AFSPA, I said like I'll be discussing separately. We have a permit system in Northeast. The permit system is of two types. One is for the citizens. One is for the non-citizens or the foreigners basically. This is for the foreigners basically. And for the citizens, it is called as inner line permit system. The permit system you have, it is called as what? Inner line permit system. And in the case of non-citizens, you have two things. One is restricted area permit. And another is protected area permit. Restricted area permit and protected area permit. No, RAP, it is mostly this restricted area permit is mostly those areas which is in few parts of Sikkim and Andaman. All right, that is what. But no need to know the differences. It was in the late 1960s actually it was there. Initial, I mean 1961, 60s and all. And protected area permits means those areas which are bordering China, those states which are bordering, say, Pakistan, like Rajasthan you have, Himachal you have. All right, so those states, so as to prevent there is a possible insurgency movement or there is a possible kind of infiltration or kind of insurgency by with the help of these Chinese people. So that is the reason why like the border states, these are basically border states, are restricted area permits there in the states of say Andaman and Sikkim. Recently it was revoked there in Andaman also. Fine. Now this is not much required, but ILP is required. Why ILP is required? Basically, I said ILP has its roots. ILP has its roots from, I said, Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873. We remember, right? The policy of exclusion. So this has its root from the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873. So it is basically what? To protect the interest of tribals. What does it does? Same thing. It prevents the settlement of non-residents. It prevents the settlement of non-residents of the specific state. So previously it was speaking about tribals versus non-tribals. Here, inland permit system prevents the settlement of non-residents of the specific state. Understand? So people, do you think this is against the constitution? Like if at all they ask like whether this is against the constitution? Constitution provides for right to free movement, right? So constitution deals with right to free movement, like, but whether it is justifiable here, can we restrict it? Yes. You have reasonable restrictions, right? under the reasonable restrictions, so in the interest of scheduled tribes, so in order to protect the tribal interests, all right, so BEFR means Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation, people. Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. So you see, this movement and the settlement could be the freedom which is provided under Article 19 with respect to free movement across India, and you have the right to reside and settle anywhere in India. That has reasonable restrictions. So in the interest of general public as well as in the interest of scheduled tribes. One example I can give it to you. You see, once like there is this Andaman Trunk Road. Andaman Trunk Road was closed for a time. Why it was closed? Because it was to prevent the exploitation of Jarawa tribes. In order to prevent the exploitation of Jarawa tribes, it was closed for a while. Because you see, like a lot of people, they made the Jarawa tribes of Andaman to dance and beg for food and all. And that is the reason why Supreme Court has banned, it was banned, like not right now. And similarly, you must have heard about Sentinel Islands, right? The Sentinel Island people, Sentinelese. Sentinel Island, like you are not supposed to go visit. Recently, one person went there, like he's gone forever now. He went there. He went there. So this is what happened, like, all right. So Sentinel Islands supposed to protect the interests of the people. So they're not like, we are not letting them to interfere in that. So these are some of the things, like inland permit is justifiable only. But the problem is people say that like, no, by making, like, again, by continuing ILP. Recently again ILP was given to Manipur. The problem is it amounts to more alienation, right? No, people are alienating. Okay, fine. They're kind of more saying that, okay, we are not part of it. So instead of integration, instead of assimilation, it is more alienating the people, like one group to other group. So that is what the criticism is. That criticism is, it is kind of more alienating the people. Understand? This is what that the criticism is ILP. It promotes alienation. It promotes an alienation. So alienation is one thing. Fine. So this is about the security aspect, and security aspect, again, you can include the other components which is part of this left-wing extremism also. Fine. Next one. The fourth one is with respect to constitutional and legal measures. Okay, fine. So the legal measures, again, the same thing which you have studied in left-wing extremism again. So we are now going to see the constitutional mechanisms we have. The constitutional mechanisms is you have a dedicated article for each of these states. So each of these states, starting from 371A, which is for Nagaland, each of these northeastern states, they have a specific provision. 371B is for Assam. 371C is for Manipur. 371F is for Sikkim. 371G is for Mizoram. 371H is for Arunachal Pradesh. Among these things, I said already, these two, the 371A and 371G, more or less similar. They give more powers. Remember 371A, what it said? Any law which is affecting the religious and social and cultural practices or affecting the civil and criminal administration justice of Nagas, it won't be applicable unless the Naga Assembly. So similarly, it's kind of in the Mizoram also. So that is the reason why other states also demanding, at least for Assam and Manipur. You see Assam, like you have specific things, like I'll discuss about this Schedule 6. So one more arrangement is, apart from these special provisions, you have Schedule 6 of the Constitution, which provides for what? Autonomous district councils or regional district, autonomous regional councils. What is it? Autonomous district councils or autonomous district councils or autonomous regional councils. You have it, the states. What are the 4 states? It is Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. So I said like no Manipur, no money in ATM. Remember? That's what. Fine. So so without any question, like someone has put just sir only. So what is it? I don't know. Okay, fine. Now, so with respect to the constitutional measures, these are the things you have to keep in mind. I said, so you have a separate thing like so mostly like Assam people, sorry, Arunachal Pradesh people, either they're demanding they want equal powers with respect to 371 ARG, or else they want under 6th schedule. This is what the scenario is. And one more thing, key point which I want to say, that even though Manipur is not part of Schedule 6, Manipur is not part of Schedule 6. All right, but still it has certain autonomous regions. It has what? Autonomous councils. But these are what? Statutory, not constitutional. These are statutory. You have a Manipur Hill Area Committee Act based on which you have it. Fine, no problem, Sivapriya. Even though I said Manipur is not part of Schedule 6, it still has autonomous councils, but it is based on the legislation. In 1971, Manipur Hill Area Act was there. So now they are also demanding, like after this ILP, they are demanding constitutional status for these regional power district councils. Fine. This is one thing. And along with that, we'll discuss the governance aspect also. Along with that, we'll discuss the governance aspect also. See, I may be wrong with the numbers. Like let it be like, because like the key one is the heading rather than the numbers. All right. So as far as the governance aspect, like you see, one of the major reasons why there is no problem in Tripura. So when I say Tripura is one of the most stable state, and when I say Mizoram, it is one of the most stable state, and one apart from the political solutions or the political, you can say, solutions, the other thing which is important is decentralization. A proper decentralization is essential for it. All right. And when I speak about governance, like Tripura is one of the states where you had successful land reforms. You had what? Successful land reforms. So governance is a very important factor. One of the reasons you can attribute it is maybe because of the left rule which was there, right? All right. So there should be proper decentralization. All right. You see, Tripura, either in the scheduled areas, non-scheduled areas, proper decentralization. In the case of Mizoram also, Meghalaya. All right. But Meghalaya, it is again problematic, but you can take the examples of Tripura and Mizoram. These are some of the reasons. So good governance is very impetus. And the next one, developmental aspects. The developmental aspects. So we have seen about the developmental aspects, right? Like, so last class I asked you to see several things, right? We'll see that one by one. The MSPs for MFPs, is it not? So I asked you to see several things, right? Did you people see that, like those things? Have you done that? Arunachal also looks stable only. Yeah, Arunachal is also kind of stable only. Arunachal is also, but Arunachal still there is some problem, not much. But these are some examples, right? Because Arunachal, they don't have so much of insurgency. Arunachal Pradesh, unlike Mizoram and Tripura, like they don't have such insurgency previously, but these they had it, but right now it is not there. Fine. Assam, the problem is there in the case of illegal migration. Okay, fine. So basically, MSP for MFPs, minor forest producers. See, what are the things you have to know? So again, like I guess like if I take again, it will take more of a time. Like I'll better start the other topic. So I'll give you some things which you have to prepare. See, MFPs, how many items at least did you see that? Like Recently it was enacted like from 50. They've added from 50 again 23. They made it as 73. These are from prelims perspective very important, right? MSP for minor forest produce. What are things included? So please refer PIB, Press Information Bureau, for this one. Getting it to know that like. And you know who formulates MSP? So MSP, there are two organizations. MSP recommended by whom? It is recommended by CACP, Cost for Agriculture Costs and Prices Commission. Sorry, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, and it is decided by CCEA. This is, you'll study this in economics, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. So please follow this minor forest produce. What is basically minor forest produce? I said no, all non-timber forest producers. So please go through the page which is there in the Tribal Affairs Ministry. Please go through, because you see, a lot of the times questions have been asked from that about us page. So please do follow that. All right, so I'm not going to discuss in detail. Maybe like if I have time, I'll discuss this separately as from prelims perspective. But please follow, because I'm just lagging 3 to 4 sessions more because of the online stuffs. So I want to finish it off, like the next 5 sessions I want to finish it off internal security. So that is the reason why. So all these things I'll take it separately. So please do follow that. What about CAMPA? Did you go through CAMPA and all, people? Did you go through CAMPA or not? No. Last class I said no, I mentioned no. CAMPA. Did I ask you or did I not? I asked you to go through CAMPA, District Mineral Fund. I asked you to go through Vandan Yojana. I asked you to go through TriFed. Those things. So please go through those things, please. All right. So whichever I mentioned, the developmental or welfare measures and the ministries, please go through the schemes. All right. Because if you start mentioning, like, it will take more time. So please go through the schemes. It will be very helpful to you. Understand? Okay. Next one. The next one is, so the role of civil societies, again, like the role of civil societies means, like I have given the example, right? So in the case of, you see, in the Naga Peace Accord, it is between NSCN. So the role of civil society, NSCN IM, the talks between NSCM and the government of India. So there was interlocutor, I said no, interlocutor. Who is the interlocutor? It is Mr. N. Ravi. So N. Ravi was the interlocutor. So similarly, there is a need for dedicated interlocutors for the other problems also. Problems in Bodoland, Assam region, problems in Meghalaya with respect to Garo, problems with respect to the issues in Kamtapur and all. So need to have a dedicated interlocutor. May not be from like Ravi, who is the present governor, but the civil societies also can come forward and do that. Understand? This is what, like apart from that, like there are a lot of other infrastructure projects also. When you speak about infrastructure projects, like the developmental projects or infrastructure projects, you see there needs to be a cooperation with the neighbors also. Lastly, you can discuss about what is the need for cooperation with neighbors, especially in the case of Myanmar. It's very important, because you see in the case of Myanmar, we have a project called Kaladan Multimodal Project. Kaladan Multimodal Transport Project. Now, what is the meaning of this Kaladan means? I'll just a minute, people. People, have I discussed previous year question papers? Have I or not? Have I discussed previous year question papers? Not even for one topic. Okay, okay, I'll discuss it. We'll discuss that today because we can start writing it. The okay, so this is the Kaladan multimodal projects. Fine. So from Mizoram, you are entering into Myanmar through Sitwe port. Again, you're reaching Kolkata. Now, why this thing? See, unless like you see, initially we tried to you go to Tripura from Bangladesh. Even now also we have such arrangements. All right. So from Kolkata to Tripura, there is a route through Bangladesh, and to reach out Mizoram instead of going through the narrow corridor. So we are reaching out so that like we can save energy, we can save a lot of money which for transport, we can save time for it. So these things, and along with that, you know what free movement regime? Remember free movement regime? FMR free movement regime. Okay, I'll enlarge the map. Okay, fine. No, people like you can Google it. People like no, I have Googled it right. So please like you can Google it and then you can go through that. Like no whitening to you can Google it right now. I know most of you people like you have it parallelly. You can Google it. This is what. No, mostly that's what like you need to have a cooperation because by why you're going to cooperate means like because to facilitate easy trade, and that is the reason why we have free movement regime. These projects, infrastructure projects, and also to facilitate that. All right, fine. So this is what. And with respect to the other aspects, AFSPA and other things, we'll discuss later on. All right, fine. That is what. So one question like, sir, when India be affected since after coup in Myanmar, Myanmar Janta is inclining towards China. That is what like exactly that is that is a kind of fear. So more Sri Lanka is also moving towards China, and Myanmar is also moving towards China. That is all I said. No political. If there's a we remember in border management how political state or the political affairs of a country which determines that. So Maldives luckily with us, Bangladesh with us right now. Afghanistan is with us right now. Even though Taliban has a major stake, it is with us. All right. But the problematic thing is China, Myanmar, Sri Lanka in the present case. Nepal, I said after the elections, I said Nepal is not much of an issue. Bhutan is not a problem at all. Nepal is kind of a neutral only. But these three states are majorly issues. Pakistan, China, and Myanmar, China, and this one Sri Lanka, they might move towards that. All right, fine, that is what. Okay, fine. So any other doubts which have people like always compare and contrast these solutions as such, please go through that like then after once you start writing you get a fair idea. Fine. So could you please say how did Sikkim integrate with India? That's not required. People like you can Google it like why you wanted it. That's not part of internal security. That is the reason why. All right, Chandramohan. So don't think like, okay, right now we don't want to discuss that. So shall we go through the previous question papers, people? Any other doubts you have with respect to Northeast? MSP is decided by CCEA, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. And that too, like I thought like you would have studied in economics. If not, you'll study. MSP is decided by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. UPSC question. UPSC has asked this question 3 times in prelims. MSPs. That road also, Indo-Myanmar, even till now, I said even till today, if you go to Northeast, visit Northeastern states like or Northeast states, North states, you have something called Asian highways. You see the ancient Sitwell Road. So we had Sitwell Road, which is communicating from India to Myanmar and all. So it's still there. All right. So the question is, sir, ADC under Schedule 6 is applicable in which states? Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Tripura. Fine. So this is what. So I guess we can go through the previous year question papers, shall we, people? All right. Jute, that's what like no, that is what like those developmental projects, especially you have to discuss about bamboo and jute things. Those were you see last year they asked about bamboo also. Bamboo like they have lifted like they have changed bamboo from tree to grass. They have changed the classification of bamboo from tree to grass. Why? Because they can easily collect it. All right. So those are things I said that is part of current affairs. You have a lot of things to discuss. So please go through that. Like I'll start like from probably from the second week of March. I'll start sharing the articles. Please go through if you're interested in internal security. You can go through those articles. All right. I'll discuss those things. Fine. Next one. The next one is previous year question papers. We'll see that. So previous year question papers, you will see that. So first of all, like I'll give my mail ID, people, like so you can start answering uh, the questions, previous year question papers, also the questions which comes in Civilspedia or IAS Parliament or any other websites which you come across, anything questions related to internal security, you can write the answers, you can send it to me through mail, or if you are like when the offline class starts, you can send it to me, I'll evaluate and give the feedback to you. All right. So these are some of the questions. Like I'll tell you how to read and what are the key points. I'll give my perspective of mains answer writing. So as Einstein said, like even though I have not made it to the final list, like I know we have open ಮಾಡಿದೆ collaborator interactive tool என்ன open ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ஓ அப்படியா? So in the meantime, I'll type my mail ID. All right. So my mail ID is Eureka. It's KK @gmail.com. So this is my mail ID. So because of Archimedes, that Eureka word. So because of fascination with physics all those times. All right. So this is my mail ID. You can send me that. Okay, fine. See, first of all, what are the things you have to keep in mind with respect to answer writing? Answer writing, it has to have some components. For instance, any issue we take it, left-wing extremism, northeast insurgency, border management, you have to have 4 components. What it is referred to as CCCS. Find out the causes, number 1. Find out the consequences, number 2. Find out the challenges and the solutions. Causes, consequences, challenges and solutions. Causes, consequences, solutions and challenges. Any issue you take it, related to women, related to tribals, anything with respect to internal security, any subject for that matter, you have to know from these perspectives. And the moment you come across the question, like you should know what they're asking, whether they're asking about the issues, that is the causes, whether they're asking the consequences or the challenges. Challenges means one part which is included in challenges is the present government schemes, the present government initiatives. Unless and until you know the challenges means like what are the existing government initiatives, why there is a bottleneck or what are the challenges in the implementation of that, what are the problems in the implementation of that. So that is what we have to do that. Understand? So once you come across a question, you have to find out whether they're asking the causes or consequences or challenges means the government initiatives, and the last is the solutions. Your solution should be based on the government initiatives. Don't give a solution which is already there in the initiatives. If there is mentioned, like you say already government has such a scheme initiative. This is how you have to prepare. Now, once the question comes in the answer question sheet, like you see the questions will be printed in both in English and Hindi. If it is a 10 marker, there will be 2 sides. 15 marker, 3 sides. Normally, it may change in next year also. Sometimes they used to give 4 and all. So this is the normal trend. 10 marker 2 sides, 15 marker 3 sides. The moment you come across the question, like you ensure that break the question into different statements. How many statements are there and what they're asking about the causes, consequences, or challenges or solutions. In that, like, no, you see like 3 parts of the answer: introduction, body, and conclusion. You see, with respect to body, everyone like the same thing only. Mostly the content of the body will be same thing only. People who know whatever it is, they write it. But where it differs is the introduction and conclusion. The takeoff and landing is where you differ from other people. So first of all, after getting to know the statements, break the number of statements. Secondly, find out the keywords. First of all, break the question into different statements. If there is any statement, 2 or 3 statements, what they're asking, causes or consequences or challenges or solutions. Find out any keywords which is mentioned in the, and the third thing is find out the directive. What is the meaning of directives? The words like examine, analyze, comment, justify, opine, explain, elaborate, decide. These are some of the directives. Critically examine, critically analyze. All right. Discuss. These are called as directives. So having the content in your hand, you have to present in the manner on the directives. All right, this is what you're supposed to do that. Okay. That is what. Now, I'll give you one more idea for it. So whenever you are presenting, like try to incorporate in the introduction, try to give a statement affirming whatever it is they've given, or sometimes you used to negate that statement also. Justify the statement. You can oppose or support the statement by giving facts. Mostly in the border management, try to draw the diagrams. Have always be prepared with a smaller diagram, say maybe kind of okay, a 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter diagram of India, a little bit bigger than that also. In the 1/4 of the page, the drawing of map should not be half of the page, 1/4 of the page in the top corner. All right, you try to draw a map, and based on the question you can give the inputs, and especially in border management that will be helpful. All right, and with respect to the number of words, actually the UPSC mentioned about word limit. It should be maximum of, say, in one page don't cross more than 80. Maintain this 60 to 80 words per page. You draw outlines left, right, bottom, and top also. You practice in such a manner in every page 60 to 80 words on an average. So maintain that space. Start this practice right now. In an average 60 to 80 words, 60 to 80 words per page, so that you can make it, because they say for a 10 marker the word limit is not more than 150 words, not more than. So they never say that 150 words you should write. It's saying that not more than 150 words. Understand? This is what is. Now one such question like Vardhan பாருங்க இல்லாட்டி ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை, எனக்கு இது மட்டும் ஓப்பன் பண்ணுங்க, அந்த இது ஓப்பன் ஆகுது, யூஎஸ்பி ஓப்பன் ஆகுதுல்ல, போது விடுங்க, அதில் எழுதிக்கிறேன், ஒன்றும் இஷ்யூஸ் இல்லை, அப்புறம் பார்த்துக்கலாம். So here is one question. So how far? The question is, how far the internal security challenges linked with border management? So here the question is, so they asked this question in is it visible right now, people? You can not just practice questions. You can answer any of these questions like previous question papers if you have. Like I'll share that. So how far are India's internal security challenges linked with border management, particularly in view of the long porous borders with most countries of South Asia and Myanmar? All right. So it's about border management. So we are discussing like so it's about land borders. So they're asking about the challenges. Challenges means so they're not asking about the causes as such, but they're asking what are the challenges they have it. Challenges here means like we have seen like from the factors, right? So how geography can become a challenge, how the land border dispute because of the historical disputes have become a challenge, how the political situation of the neighboring country has become a challenge. All those things we have seen, right? So how can you give that? Like so here I said like it's only one statement. They're asking about the challenges as such. So challenges here means like you have to know what are the problems basically, and not about the solutions. Solutions you can give it at the end. And the porous borders. So the key word here, technical word is porous borders, meaning what? We spoke about porousness versus non-porousness, right? So why there is movement of people, illegitimate or illegitimate movement of goods and people. All right. So how can you go ahead with that? Like you can draw a map of India, a small map of India. Maybe what you can do that, like you can draw that map and you can mention about Myanmar, you can mention about Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, what is the major issue? Illegal migration. So after drawing Bangladesh, see for instance, you can draw this map of I'm sorry, people, some problem with that like today, so excuse me that. All right. So with respect to Bangladesh, you can mention about illegal migration. With respect to Myanmar, golden triangle, drug trafficking. With respect to Nepal, you can mention about safe haven. It is used as a safe haven majorly. And with respect to Pakistan, again, drug trafficking and other things like incursion you can mention, or infiltration you can mention with respect to Pakistan. China you can mention as incursion. So this will give you okay what sort of problems we face it. And here the question is like it is between all countries of South Asia and Myanmar. Is Myanmar part of South Asia, people? Is Myanmar part of South Asia? Is Myanmar part of South Asia? No means why? Like why? Then why? What is it part of? Okay. You see, South Asia, you have countries like SAARC countries. Have you heard about SAARC, right? South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So in these SAARC countries, you have these things. You start using these mnemonics or what is called as acronyms. You see, remember these smaller countries, smaller groups of things. For instance, in the case of SAARC, there is a mnemonic which is called as MBBS PIN, or later on which became MBBS, MBBS pain. Just remember, doing a medical degree, it's very difficult, right? So remember MBBS pain. What does M stands for? M doesn't stand for Myanmar. M stands for Maldives. Maldives, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, and Nepal. Now, this is a very well-known acronym which was there. It's available in the internet, like which I took it from the internet long back. It was there since 2008, as I remember. So based on this only, we started when we started preparation in 2008-9, we started our own mnemonics also. What is our own mnemonics like? Right now, I'll take the credit. I don't take the credit for SARC, but I'll take the credit for like the one which I'm going to say. With respect to Southeast Asia, that is okay. BIMSTEC is a cooperation, people. BIMSTEC is a kind of a sectoral cooperation actually with respect to economic and other things. But regional grouping more than BIMSTEC, it is ASEAN for the Southeast Asia. Like how it is SARC for South Asia, it is ASEAN for the Southeast Asia. Southeast Asian countries like usage of mnemonics. I'll give you an example how to use mnemonics effectively. Just remember there is MMS, multimedia messaging service. There is an MMS. So I'm sending that through Bluetooth. I'm sending it to my friend, like you're there, like to view it, like I'm sending it through Bluetooth. If you're far away, I need your address, right? Internet protocol address, IP address, remember? IP. The keyword is IP. And after you're receiving it, I'm asking you to play in a famous player, that is VLC player. VLC video player, you know that, right? So that is what the keywords are: MMS, Bluetooth, IP, and VLC. So now the countries. What are the countries? MMS means Myanmar, Malaysia, Singapore. BT stands for Brunei, Thailand. IP stands for Indonesia, Philippines. VLC, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. MMS, BT, IP, VLC. No, that's what, like, this is my way of story. You can also do that. Like, there's a lot of ways, and you can generate, like, you can correlate with your own story also. So try to do mnemonics for easy remembrance. Understand? Please do that. So let it be, like, you should, like, you develop these things for GCC, for those countries wherein, like, for those groupings where the countries are less than 12, 16 and all. You can do that, like G20, G7 countries or G8 countries, GCC. UPSC asks this question, which country is part of it or not, and that is the reason why. But here what they're asking, like, in the question itself they mentioned with most countries of South Asia and Myanmar. If Myanmar is part of South Asia, would have mentioned separately? They know. If Myanmar is part of South Asia, why would they expressly mention that Myanmar? All right, so since they've mentioned separately, means they wanted to include that. Logically, sometimes presence of mind. All right, so this is how you are supposed to answer. All right, so what I'll do, maybe I'll share this one tomorrow, like, in the group. Like, I'll put it in this PDF format, and then I'll share this one. We'll continue with this other questions also, previous question papers also tomorrow. We'll see other things, like what are the common mistakes you'll do and how you should proceed and all. I'll give you a complete idea about it, like, so that you can start writing answers. Like, so don't think that, okay, no, I found, like, few people have the tendency, like, okay, internal security mains perspective, we should study from the after the prelims only, after clearing mains only, clearing prelims only. So don't have that habit, please. So there are a lot of questions related to internal security they're asking from the prelims also. All right. And so that is one thing, like, and still, like, you keep on writing this practice, don't stop with that. All right, fine. So we'll stop with this today. We'll see that other things. I'll clear your doubts. All right, in the meantime, so people can sign off, like, so people do take care. We'll meet tomorrow then. All right, take care, and good night. And now the questions, like, I'd like to answer. So please post your questions right now. So issues with Bru refugees. I said Bru refugees, they are from, I said Bru people were part of Mizoram. They were sent back to Tripura because of the conflict. Now they want to bring back to Mizoram. So that is what called as repatriation of Bru people from Tripura to Mizoram. That is a kind of an issue, because Tripura, some people wanted, some people don't want to come to Mizoram again. So that is a problem. So that might lead to some sort of an discontent. So there is a discontent among the Tripura people also regarding that. So please go through that. Afghanistan, part of South Asia. I read it as Central Asia so far. No. See, I'm saying that Afghanistan was added as a part of SARC in 2008. If I'm not wrong, it was added in 2008. Before it was MBBS pain. After Afghanistan, it became a pain. Easier for remembering, right? But is it be? It is a kind of connection to Central Asia only. Whatever you may consider that to be. So people consider it to be part of Indian subcontinent also. And if people consider that to be Central Asia, it's not a factual information. It is a kind of opinion only. All right. But factually, it is part of SARC. No one can say that, like, it is not part of SARC. So that is the reason I said it's a South Asian group. Understood, Mageshwar? Any other doubts, people? Questions I'll send it to you, don't worry. I said class notes along with that current affairs newspapers, definitely. Have you got the books? Please, if not, like, if the book is already, I guess the other batches have got it. There is a book on national security. Get that book also. Go through that. Current affairs, I said, like, especially in cybercrime. Cybercrime, you never expect the questions they asked. It's morely based on current affairs. In the cybercrime, and these are some of the static portions. There is current affairs, but the cyber security and other things, there is more of current affairs. So you definitely have to go through the current affairs. Notes for basic understanding, approach, and for current affairs. Fine, Sivapriya, fine. Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you, people. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Karthik, Supriya, Satyaj, Jaydev. So, shall we sign off then? Thank you to this unknown person from Adyar match. All right. Fine. We'll sign off. We'll good night, people. We'll meet tomorrow then. All right.